Welcome to the July 22nd specially called meeting of the JDA. We're starting at 4:03 in the afternoon. So the second item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda itself. I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We'll pick Erica this time. Stuff you get next time. All right. Any further discussion of the agenda? I don't think there probably will be. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, the motion passes unanimously. The next item is the approval of minutes from the last meeting. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at those? I did have one correction for the minutes, and that is it doesn't list who put forth the motion to call the next special meeting. Although that was me, so just so we document who put forth the motion under item H.
Okay.
I was the one who put forth that motion, so if you just add that. That's the only thing I saw. Does anybody else have anything else that they see that needs to be corrected on the minutes?
Nope.
All right. He just made the corrections on the minutes. So I'd like to put forth a motion to approve the corrected minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. This is Stephanie's turn. All right. Any further discussion on the minutes? All right. Seeing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Motion carries unanimously. Let's get back to the... All right. Old business. I believe our primary focus today is to talk about the scoring matrix that Stephanie put a lot of time and effort into putting together and gave us all our own copies to play with. I'm assuming everybody had a chance to see that.
Yes.
Tim asked for one change that we could talk about, but I hadn't heard any other changes from anybody.
I didn't send changes. I just modified my version of it.
Okay.
I do have a suggested change to the days of cash scoring numbers.
David, may I share the screen so as you're talking about it, we can look at it?
Yes. I can
share your copy or my copy?
Well, I mean, my copy is where I made a change.
Okay.
And I'll share mine because I want to share that picture that you gave us of that graph as a rationale for it. So let me come here. Let's see. Spin to the dot. Anybody know off the top of your head how to share the screen?
There's like an icon that looks like a box with the arrow coming out of it.
It's right next to the camera icon.
Yeah, mine's grayed out. So
it would be easier for you to go to the top of the window, and after File and Edit, there's a Share function option where you can select what to share.
All right, I can share my meeting window. That doesn't really do anything. I want to share my desktop, actually. I can't share my remote computer without Kelly changing the permissions.
Let's see. I've got it set up on anyone can share. Let me see if I can specifically assign privileges to you.
Okay.
See.
I mean, we can work from Stephanie's. Stephanie,
I'm going to make you the presenter.
Okay.
All right. See. All right. See if that'll let you share now.
No, it's still grayed out. The sharing option still grayed out.
Now mine's grayed out where it wasn't grayed out before.
Okay.
Well,
Stephanie, I'm going to try and make you the presenter real quick.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
worked. Good.
Do y'all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, I think.
And you got you've got mine
I
up
do.
and running. I made changes to it. Before I describe what my changes are, could you bring up that graph that JP Morgan did of the?
Mm-hmm. Let's see, where did that thing get? I got out of the wrong place. Okay. Here we go.
All right, can you make it a little bit bigger? It doesn't have to be bigger, but it is.
Golly. I think it's because it's is that bigger?
Well, I don't see. There it is. That's fine. It should be enough for me to explain why I made changes to the scoring for that.
Uh-huh.
If you look at the graph that Stephanie's displaying, majority, the way you determine, how many people or how many businesses are affected is by the area under the curve. And from my looking at the graph, from 13 to 27, or 29, 27, yeah, 30 to 27, it's got the largest area under the curve. And I found a formula and did a calculation of the area under the curve from 13 to 62. And what I came up with was that the area from 13 to 27 is got twice the area of the other two ranges, which is 27 to 42 and 42 to 62. So, and they're pretty much half of the area of the first one. So my rationale was that we should be giving out loans to the number of businesses that have the largest impact in terms of the number of businesses, which is the first one, 13 to 27. And then the other two are equal area, so that means the equal number of businesses. So if you look at my scoring compared to Stephanie's, is that I flipped the 13 to 27 and the 27 to 42 to be 25 and 15 for the others. And all the calculations seem to jive with that. So that would be my recommendation, based upon that curve, is to treat the first range as more important. If you do the calculations, it really does come out to 25 and 15 for the maximum score for each, based upon the area under the curve. So that's my suggested change. Other than that, I was fine with the scoring that was in the spreadsheet.
I support that logic. It's sound.
I have a question, not a solution, but a question. Why are we favoring businesses with less impact on their business? So businesses that lost 25 to 50% versus businesses that decreased from 50 to 75%. I wasn't sure why that would be more valuable to be less impacted.
Like I said, I don't really have a preference here. I thought a business that lost 25 to 50% is probably a stronger business than one that lost 50 to 75, but it could be very industry specific. So, I'm fine if we flip-flop that.
No,
Yeah.
I personally think that the ones that, the closer you are to not having any money, of course, the closer you are to going out of business. So I treated the 25 to 50 as more likely to stay in business than definitely than the 75 to 100.
Well, I think that the cash buffer factor addresses that. So businesses that were running efficiently before have a bigger cash buffer, but there are going to be certain industries that will feel the impact of the loss of will feel the impact of the loss of customers more than others. And so I think that the cash buffer addresses the soundness of the business, and that the loss of revenue addresses the industry specific.
Yeah, and we should also keep in mind that we're looking at a point in time, and that was the month. Is it May? We're looking from May to May or June to June from the previous year. So it's not that they're currently at a 50% loss, but maybe that first impact gave them a 50% loss.
Do we want to change that?
I mean, we kind of have already settled on the terms that said we demonstrate a more than 25% loss in a 3-month period, like a quarter. So we're going to look at second quarter. And if there's second quarter this year and second quarter last year, these are the percentage losses that we're looking at. Erica's right, because restaurants might have been at 100% loss, but that doesn't mean they're not strong businesses, and their cash might show that. So I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we flip-flop these two so that we're giving a little more to people that had more of a loss, meaning their industry was probably more impacted? But if you're at a 75 to 100% loss, maybe it's too late for us to help you.
Yeah, 75 to 100% for an extended period of time would be hard to come back from for any business. I mean, I'm thinking of other retail trades too, like clothing stores, shoe stores, any of those.
Could we
eyeglasses?
20 each.
Could we not look at like each individual application? Put a question in related to what they define themselves as, what category of business, and look at it within the context of what type of business they are?
Well, that just creates a whole nother. I can't do a scoring like that. That's going to be just more than we can handle. We got to keep it simple, stupid as much as we can, because we're not, credit evaluators. And trust me, figuring out what industry someone's in, it sounds like a simple thing, but it ain't. It ain't.
I mean, we could use the Department of Labor classification if we want to.
I don't
know if that
people put codes in for what industry they're in, that creates a barrier for businesses to fill out that application.
Maybe we don't have a code related to it. It's just sort of a supplemental piece. We have 4 people come up. They all of them are at 90% loss for the last 2 quarters. So we take a dive, look at what their business offers. If we know that they're a business that works solely in, food service, that's a very different thing from a place that, I don't know, it's an art gallery.
Well, if someone wants to volunteer to do a classification of industries and figure out which ones are more important, we talked about this last week, and making a value judgment is what the challenge is.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be difficult to do, frankly.
Right.
I understand the logic of it. It sounds very, very difficult to implement and justify, in my opinion.
Look, I've changed it to where this one gets a little bit less than 50 to 75. It's not, a drastic difference, but this is the maximum. And if you were in that range, which may be practical for a lot of businesses will apply, you get 5 extra points. What do y'all think about that?
I think that's fair.
It's fine.
It's a little preferential. That's it.
We did talk at one point about number of employees. Do we want to revisit that? So, like, how many jobs would be impacted? And that could be the difference between an art gallery and a restaurant.
We talked about the difficulty in calculating FTEs for businesses, especially small ones. I just think, frankly, we have stretched this out way too long. We've got to get moving, and we have more of a system here than you would probably have in any loan application that wasn't going to pull credit reports. We've done a lot of due diligence here, and I think it's strong, and we're just picking out the edges now.
Okay.
My opinion.
All right, right. So we're making that modification and leaving the modification that I put in for the cash scoring percentages.
Yes. Then I want to talk about Tim's request. He wanted to diversify the answers under Factor 5 about woman and minority owned, where you choose you are either yes, minority owned, yes, woman owned, both, or no, so that you get. Tim, you didn't specify these point values, but I just used the numbers we already had. You get 4 if you're one, 4 if you're the other, and 10 if you're both.
I think that looks great.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is everybody happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
So, has everybody seen how this thing does its magic?
Yeah, it's fun to play around with, to throw random numbers in there.
So let's do that. So here I've got this calculation happening here. Annual operating expense, we'll just say it's 125,000, and they have 1,000 on hand, and they had a net profit. So days of cash on hand 73, change 60%. I'm going to put my yes. No, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, maybe I am woman owned. Gave me 37 points because I had percent revenue loss. I had more than 62 days of cash on hand, so I only got 2 points for that. Profitable for COVID, yes. So it does all this calculation. Now it says we're not eligible, and that is because of this more than 62 days of cash on hand. And that's why I was saying, like, we need to put a cap on it because they should still be eligible. But let's change the cash on hand to 10,000. And now they're eligible for 11,000. So it won't go above 12,500 as long as your cash on hand is not above 62. I've got to solve that problem. But if you already have more than 12,500, like if you already have more than 62 days, there's no way to calculate how to get you to 12,500 because you had no days to calculate it on. So it's just a calculation I haven't finished. But it does all this for us. Now, the idea is that we'd have a leading spreadsheet in here that's got a list of all the applicants, and all the data is just pulled in a big spreadsheet where we can sort and say, here's who we're going to fund.
Yeah, and we would feed it from the form that they fill out when they apply.
Yeah, I wish that we could, but on that application form, we're not evaluating these numbers because we're not asking them to enter them. We're asking for them to produce those reports. We're going to enter it because, I mean, we could have them enter it, but like some of this stuff takes the knowledge of how to read a financial statement to put it in here. And you will be very surprised the number of people that cannot read their own financial statements.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I don't want to put that effort on them. I really feel like somebody needs to eyeball these things, and I'm happy to volunteer, but if there are 500 applications, I'm going to need help. I could train someone.
I can help.
Erica, David, y'all know how to read these.
I can help on weekends.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
So
I think I brought this question up last time. What is the net profit, 365-day net profit, used for calculation purposes?
It's not. All it does is it check, is it above, is it greater than 0? We don't have to key in that number. I thought it might be useful though, when we're looking at data, if it's already in front of us, just pop it in there. So if we're comparing and like saying, we saved this many companies that had this much net profit in previous year, it's just a data point we can use to say how good this loan program was and the kind of businesses it helped.
Okay, so it's more after the fact or for report purposes, not for decisions.
That's right. Yeah. It's the one thing that we're putting in here that is not for the decision, but it's good data to have. One other thing I need to add is like a field that says evaluated by with a drop box so that whoever's looking at an application can tie themselves as the evaluator. And that way nobody else is going to touch it. And if there's a problem with it, we'll go back to that person and say, this number doesn't seem to match. Can you look at this again? Because you're reading a financial report, cost of goods sold is an important number for a lot of businesses, and some businesses don't know that that goes into cost of goods sold, and they'll have that as an operating expense, and it will throw all the numbers off. So, some evaluation has to be done by a financially minded person to pull those pieces apart, and maybe you did some hand calculations to do it, and it could have just been off. So I want somebody to be accountable for each one they evaluate, and that just allows us to go back to that person to have them look at it again if it seems off.
That sounds fine.
Okay. So it sounds like Pardon?
Yeah, I'll just go into the cumulative spreadsheet that we create for the businesses.
Go into what?
The cumulative tabs that we keep for each of the businesses in this, right? We talked about a master spreadsheet.
Yeah. I don't have that set up yet, but it would be the first sheet. Okay. And, it's going to be a little tricky because we're going to all have to work from this one sheet, which means you have to copy every time you get a new application, you have to copy this and give it the person's name on it.
Right.
It's the logic to make that first sheet pull every sheet that gets added. I don't know how to do that yet. I've never done that. It's like a macro has to run on it, and I've not worked with macros, not in Google Docs, but it can be manually done. It just be a little manual, but we can work on that. The important thing is that we have something that calculates like we want. We've got the point values we're happy with. We agree on it, and we can move past this part. Mm-hmm. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I think we can automate as much as possible the actual, creation of the individual spreadsheets. I'm not worried about that at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
So is everybody happy with the changes that have been made? I'd like to put forth a motion to approve the scoring matrix as it's been modified. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that, Erica.
Okay. Second from Erica. What else? Any other discussion of the scoring matrix?
I just think it's good work. I really appreciate you working on it, Stephanie. I mean, and the great thing is it actually will give us a sort of database to draw from in the future too, just to see what the curves of each one of these indicators are.
We hope.
Yeah.
I hope. I mean, the real where the rubber hits the road is we get the first 10 applications, we start plugging it in and saying nobody's getting a loan because everybody has more money than we've allowed for. It will be a surprise to me. And we may have to go back to the drawing board and look at some of these point values and ranges if that turns out to be the case. But honestly, we can't know until we know. But this is a good starting point. But let's never change it.
I think the lender would probably be able to give us some guidance too. So if they get a hold of this and they just say, you're
smoking,
cash on hand is way off.
Yeah.
I think we'll hear from them.
Okay. We don't know who they are yet, but when we do, we can share this with them.
Right. Including the original documents if they want to look at the P&Ls and whatnot. But.
Right. Okay.
All right. We do have a motion in a second. Is there any other further discussion? All those in favor of the scoring matrix, say aye. Or raise your hand, whatever. Any dissent? All right. The matrix passes unanimously. We have two other things to review. One is the actual application itself that Dan trimmed down from the original. And then the second is the RFQ document that Dan put together.
I have the screen. I can just share it, or do y'all want to switch it over to Dan?
If you'd go ahead and share your screen, that'd be great.
You see the application up here now?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll let you take it, Dan.
Well, the application is a condensed version of what you've seen before. And I did it with this side by side with the scoring matrix, which was good. I mean, that has the financial information and a lot of the eligibility information on it in the scoring matrix, which led us to be able to both condense this and organize it. And Stephanie made it prettier and even better organized. I'm impressed. So it's, if I can, I'll just quickly walk through the different blocks in the application and give you a sense of the changes that were made. The first block is the same as it was, except that we eliminated any reference to the financial information. There's one thing that I'll mention it now because it's in this block. We have loan request amount and then a provision for an explanation if it's more than $12,500. We haven't discussed, I don't think, a minimum loan. And I have a reason for asking about that, but has anybody thought about that and have a thought to share about what you think the minimum amount ought to be?
I thought we talked about a range from $7,500 to $12,500 as the range of loans that we'd make for people. Did we not talk about that?
Well, when we went to the calculated matrix where we looked at the number of days, if someone, like 62 days would be the max. If someone had 60 days, maybe they only need $3,000. So I think we should just say up to $12,500 and not put a minimum on it. Because the minimum is determined by us at the point of decision.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Well, let me offer an observation on that. That's fine from an economic standpoint. When we get to the discussion of the RFQ, I can talk about this in more detail. We mentioned last time that lending is a regulated business, particularly if you're a bank. Georgia also regulates payday lenders, which are loans of up to $3,000. There's an exemption for quasi-governmental bodies. But, lawyers love belts and suspenders. So my suggestion would be both because a loan of less than $3,000, unless somebody's really desperate, is probably not going to do them much good. But my suggestion would be that we have a minimum loan size of more than $3,000. So $3,001 would be the minimum, just so that it's pretty clear that we don't have to rely on an exemption. By definition, we're not a payday lender.
Okay.
I can live without that if the board doesn't prefer it, because I think that we're not legally anyway, and we'll double check that when we talk with the bank. But that would be my recommendation. It's not one of those strong recommendations. It's just a legal preference.
I'm fine with $3,001.
Thank you.
Yeah, so am I.
Right. And that would go in that blank there.
Yeah, between 3,001 and 12,005.
Right. And then moving on to the next block. This is it's pretty much the same as it was before. The wording of the public benefit commitment has been modified as to conform to the scoring metrics, and may change again depending on how the online version of it looks. And we did add that they had to pay Winterville just like they had to pay Athens-Clarke. On the next page,
before we move on, can we talk about the eligibility page?
Sure, absolutely.
Because I put in a comment there that's not visible, but what do we need the Social Security number of the person applying for? What do we need it for? Does the bank need it?
Right here.
I had that same question because I'm nervous about giving people my Social Security number and tax ID number. Tax ID number is up in block 1. People in institutions in the business of lending want that so that they can do credit checks and so that they can do some internal checking to make sure that you don't have people claiming the same Social Security number, for example. If we're using, and I don't know how far we're going to go with credit checks anyway. I mean, I guess that's something to be discussed. But if we're going to rely on the information they give us and not do due diligence by looking underneath it or looking for more information, then I'm not aware of a reason why we would require a Social Security number or require a tax ID number. The administrator may have something to say about it. He may have ideas that I don't have. But that was my reason for leaving again, because I thought deliberately about that in making these revisions and decided to leave it in.
Well, I would like to wait for the feedback on the administrator, but I would prefer not to use the TIN. I mean, somebody might use an EIN. I don't know why they would for a small business, but you can't necessarily do credit checks on EINs.
But if you are a sole proprietor, you don't even have a federal tax ID. You have to give your Social Security number.
Yeah, I know. But if you're, yes, right. I understand that. It's only C and S Corps, I believe, that where an EIN would be required.
I can actually give you a reason not to require it, which is that if we do have it, then we have a duty to maintain the security of it.
That's exactly why I didn't want to have it.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend that unless the administrator requires it, I don't really want to store it anywhere. Because many years ago, I was involved in a breach of Social Security numbers, and it was not a pleasant situation. So, anyway.
And we're going to put this online, and you don't want it transmitted via internet. Let's remove it. I mean, we may need it. We may have to get it some other way.
Yeah, maybe somehow we can get the administrator to get it from them in a more secure fashion. But anyway, I'd like to remove it.
Anybody else care?
No objection here.
Okay, anybody else have a problem with that?
No.
Okay.
Gone.
All right. The other thing in that was just in that section was just my comments about the fees. I just put Athens-Clarke County or City of Winterville because I'm not sure anybody would have a license in both Winterville and in the county. So I changed the and to or.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just
If they had a business in the city, it would have a city business license. And if they had a business location in ACC, it would have an ACC business license.
Correct. But not both.
Or, I mean, it's up to you.
It's a minor thing. I just don't see the need for an and. It's either going to be in the county or it's going to be in the city of Winterville, but not both.
Well, and that's why I put as applicable. If it's not applicable, it's not applicable. But I'm happy to make it or.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend as an or.
Right.
That's all I had in this section.
I've changed those things already.
Okay. So the next is the public benefit section, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I looked it over. It looked like exactly what we put in our
Should be.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't say that you have to pick at least one. We need that in here. It says check one, apply.
It's on the preceding page. It's the second bullet up from the bottom, at least one.
Okay. Well, when we do an online application, we can do a required field where they have to pick one. So that's fine.
Okay.
And I guess now that we're having the option of a 50% woman, 50% minority, or 50% both, we have to know which that is, that last certification.
We'll have to change this, this out more in we're just going to have a check box, and so maybe we can have a drop box on this one. I don't know. We'll figure out a way to handle it, but yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
Well, yes.
Ready to move to the next block?
Yeah.
All right. So in the next block, the major change there is that I define what the application is. The application form, which is this paper document, soon to be an online document, and the scoring matrix are integrated now. So what I'm saying here is that in order to apply, you have to complete and sign this application form, and you have to submit the scoring matrix, and they are read together. And aside from that, it's the same document.
And that was not my intention. My intention is that we're going to fill out that scoring matrix based on the application materials.
Correct. That's what we talked about earlier today. So
when I wrote this, the form, because I was trying to keep the application form short, didn't have the public benefit commitments in it. So I'm cross-referencing it. If they're in there now, then yes, it can be a standalone document.
Yeah, that's what we wanted. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And the only other thing about going online is signatures.
Yeah.
If we go online, we have problems with electronic signatures that we have to deal with. So if it's purely online,
like a lot of form systems, David, now have an electronic signature field. I don't know if Google's added that, but I have seen where you just retype your name and a date in a regular field, and that certifies as your signature.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that before too.
But
Acrobat does that in a PDF.
Yeah, but this isn't going to be a PDF form. It's going to be online, like not an editable PDF.
Can't we convert it to editable PDF?
Adobe started charging for sign and send.
Yeah.
And so people will have to have a paid version of Acrobat to do that.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Yeah.
We can just change the wording to say that by submitting this, you're certifying it, but they're going to have to manually sign a promissory note. And when they manually sign the promissory note, they can manually sign a paper copy of this. We do need them to certify this stuff.
That's fine.
So I'm not clear what we're going to change here. The application consists of the application form. Is that it?
Most of that will drop out. Maybe all of it will drop out. This used to just read information about the loan terms, and that may be all that's left when I have a chance to look at it thoroughly.
All right, so I will leave this in here and let you edit this part, Dan.
Okay. It'll probably all drop out.
Okay.
That's fine. We've covered my comments in this section. So anybody else have any comments about the loan application section? Okay, I don't hear any. So Dan, you want to move on to the final?
Sure.
Or to the next one?
Under approval and evaluation factors, maybe that ought to read approval and scoring matrix. Maybe these are evaluation factors. What do y'all think about that? The caption.
Yeah.
I would leave it as evaluation factors. Everybody uses the scoring matrix internally, even though they can know what our point system is. But
okay.
What does everybody else think about the nomenclature?
We're talking about this.
That's the title: approval and evaluation factors is approval and scoring matrix.
I think evaluation factors is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I do too.
Then let me tell you the substance of what's in it. So we now have the scoring matrix, and it's got two parts: public benefit and financial. Right. The thought is that we're going to assign scores and then rank them from 1 to 500 if we have 500 applications. And those applications will be for different amounts of money. And the notion is that you go down starting from the top until you add it all up and you've accounted for, or there are applications for, all of the money that we've got to lend. And that's unless we disqualify somebody. If we find out that somebody's lied on an application or is, wanted for murder or something like that. He's got great credit, but he's a murderer, something like that. We would then make the award of those loans. I introduced the concept, which I've talked about before, but it's in here formally now, of rounds. So if we have, pick a number, $1 billion to loan, and we get applications in, we're finding out more about it. Maybe we don't want to loan the whole $1 million at once. Maybe we want to loan half of it, or maybe we want to loan all of it. If our minds are made up that whatever we've got, we're going to commit as soon as we have sufficient applications, then you don't need the concept of rounds. But if you want to reserve the right to adjust the program, to change the eligibility or the public benefit commitments for some reason, then you would want to retain the concept of rounds so you'd have more money to apply the different programming to. So
I like rounds. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there a problem though with changing the guidelines? So you've got people approved on one set of guidelines, and then you have another round where you change the guidelines. Doesn't that cause problems for people?
It could, but suppose, hey, lawyers are great at coming up with examples of things. Suppose we have a second round of pandemic that's absolutely awful and people are more desperate, so we drop the standards having to do with what it takes to qualify just because there's more need for the money. It's just one extreme example. Okay. But I it's not uncommon for public bodies, for example, DCA. I think they're making the employment incentive program, and have for a while, available year round, but it used to be available in rounds as their funding came in from the federal government. That's all HUD money, CDBG money. So same concept. We can't be arbitrary or discriminatory or any of those things in what we do with a round, but we can react to or maybe be proactive regarding changes in economic conditions and needs. Again, I'm not advocating for this. I just want to protect the board, make sure you don't get backed into a corner. But if it's our intention to lay out all the money at once, or as soon as we have qualified applicants that score our minimum, or actually we don't have a minimum now. I guess we could end up with people not being eligible. 100% couldn't be eligible. Those who don't score higher enough are not eligible. But in any event, the concept is that you either lay it out all at once or you reserve the right to do it in rounds, and it's up to the board how you feel about that. I think as long as we act properly with a subsequent round, we can have subsequent rounds.
May I ask a question about this round idea? When I think about putting out an application that says, hey, apply for this money, a round could just be a date-based round, like first 15 days, every application that comes in will be evaluated, so that we don't have to wait 60 days to compare everyone to everyone else in terms of those scores. We can have cutoff time, so we evaluate the ones that we've gotten. If there are people that are not eligible, then they can reapply the next time, and maybe their numbers will change. But that way we can start piecemealing this money out quicker than having to wait a whole application cycle.
It's a better example than mine.
Yeah, I'm thinking also that there may be some need that we're not predicting right now that will reveal itself in the types of applications that we receive.
I agree.
It's a good idea. And I like the date-based instead of an amount-based.
Mm-hmm.
This allows for both.
Yeah.
Rounds sound like people are happy with rounds.
Okay. Moving on to funding. Oops, well, that's where the rounds are, come to think of it. So we're down to execution of the application, which we talked about, and that language would need to change to say that your submission is your certification, and you'll be expected to sign it manually when you sign your note if you're a lucky winner.
Fine.
And you'll rewrite that. And
Sure.
Only the applicant will have to sign or have to certify the application, even if there were multiple owners they identified. Just one person certifies, and then they all sign if they get offered the loan.
I think it's almost like an affidavit, really. If it's on behalf of an entity, then the entity's bound by an authorized person providing the certification. The individual actually isn't. But if it's a partnership, for example, then the partners have vicarious liability for what one of the other partners says. So it's the idea is you are binding the entity. We don't need more than one signature if it only takes one signature to bind the entity, unless the board feels like we need to have everybody with knowledge sign. And if you feel that way, then we've got in that table where we ask for ownership the people with knowledge. But so far, just ask for one signature.
I have heard of cases where a certain husband would apply for a loan and get it, and his wife might have been a part owner and she never knew he took out the loan. Like, I wouldn't want something like that to happen. So I feel like when they accept the loan, both owners, if there are multiples, should have to agree to the terms. But for filling out the application, just one person certifying that I'm authorized to fill this out and it's all correct is fine with me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Otherwise, you might have one partner putting everybody into debt and they didn't know about it.
That's right.
And if they can't get them to the table to sign, then we should be making the loan.
Yeah, because they're not going to get paid back. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds fine to me. So this last section, we wouldn't have signatures, but just the name of the person certifying, and then it would be a paper thing that they'd sign at the time of loan.
That's right. And we'd let them know, of course, so that if somebody says, my spouse will never sign this, then they don't waste our time by submitting something that's never going to close. And that's another good reason to have a round, I guess. I mean, if we make an award and somebody, for whatever reason, takes forever to come back and the money's just sitting there not doing any good, we'd want to be able to redirect it to somebody else.
Yeah, I do think we need a limit on a date range for applications, but also a limit on the turnaround for the applications.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
Can you stipulate that in the application itself?
Yeah, it could be in the guidelines, but it's probably easier to put it in the application.
Stipulate a time frame for submission of all materials from the time they apply.
Well, I'm hoping that they're going to attach their files that we need when they apply. I mean, it needs to be a full app.
Yeah, because otherwise we can't really evaluate it. Or we can't all evaluate it.
Well, we could require the documents.
Yeah, I think we should.
Come through, right.
In fact, I was thinking there's got to be, like Acrobat, you can merge a bunch of PDFs together into a single file. There's probably a website where you can upload a bunch of PDFs and they'll put it in one file. Because I was thinking it would be great if they would submit one file with their checking account information, their profit and loss, all those things we want. So we don't have a million different documents floating around. I haven't searched yet, but I am certain there's a website that does that for you.
You're saying that we would actually combine them together from the applicant, or they'd have to go out and find the tool?
Well, we would. I'm going to locate one, and so in the online application where it has the browse button to find the file, I'm going to have a link that says we need all your files together in one PDF. Click here to go to this website to merge them together. If there's such a thing out there. If there's not, we're going to have to make them different fields, but I don't want to.
Yeah, I think there is, but
Google Suite might have it. There may be something in there where they could just do like a folder in Google Suite.
Yeah. I meant to research that, but I ran out of time, but I will.
Where is the requirement for the documentation? What documentation are we talking about, and where's the requirement for it?
It's not in here. Yeah, it's not in here. I was going to ask about that because we need them to submit those documents that we need, Dan. We've been talking about that list.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't need to be on this form, but when we make this form an online form, we need to add a way for them to upload the documents we need. And that was like the P&L, balance sheet, bank statements, most current bank statements for operating accounts, those documents.
Were those the ones that were on the prior version of this?
I don't know if you ever had them listed. I mean, let's see. I don't think
it's still on there. The old one's still on there.
Yeah, it's right here. Eligibility, public benefit. No, we never had the list of documents, but we have a list.
Okay.
I'll have to pull it up because I can't remember where we put it.
Well,
I think it's
under loan application. The place to add that is under the loan application block.
Here is it. This is it. Okay. So I'm going to copy. And you said put it under the loan application block here?
Yes.
I'll let you finagle it in there, but
okay.
That's not what I want. Gotta open it. We've done more work than we remembered doing.
It's good work too.
Yeah. I'm very happy with how far we've come.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Garamond?
Yeah. Remove the underlining, or strike through.
Okay.
You can Alt-Shift-5 that. Comes right off.
Oh, I don't know those shortcuts. Only a geek would know that.
Okay. I'll own that.
So, Dan, I'll let you clean this up a little bit.
Will do.
All right.
Okay, so we pretty much went through it all, and I guess the signatures, we decided that we would not put the signatures on the online application form, right?
Well, it's like
certified.
accepting cookies. It's like accepting cookies. By submitting the application, they're certifying. But we'll get the signature when we get the original signed.
Right, but we just need to modify this document, the wording here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Dan will do all that and bring it back to us.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Are there any other comments about the application form?
No.
All right. So I don't think we need a motion right now because we're not going to approve it until we have Dan make some modifications. So next time we meet, we can hopefully have something that we can sign off on. All right. The other thing that Dan sent was the RFQ.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. Dan, because you sent that as like a Word doc, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't upload it because I'm not familiar with Google Docs, but I emailed everybody a copy.
I tried to upload it, but I don't have authority to upload documents in the root folder. So.
Uh-oh.
I brought it up now.
I think only Ilka and maybe somebody else that are. I couldn't.
Can y'all see it?
Put it up?
Mm-hmm.
Looking.
Did everybody look at it? I read through it and
I've actually.
Would you like for me to kind of walk you through it and tell you what's in the different blocks like we did before?
I would like you to tell me if it could be any simpler, because this seems really complex for someone to apply if it's not a big chunk of change for them.
I've never seen one simpler than this.
Oh, God. God bless those companies that have to fill these out.
Well,
all right.
Actually, let me give you the thought process behind this. And I was lucky enough to have some good precedents to draw from. Loan administration and loan servicing, I mean, for those of you in the financial industry, I apologize for telling you what you already know, is an industry all by itself. And a well thought out document to control that is very technical and somewhat long. In the financial industry, folks sometimes get careless because everything's right until it's not. And you end up having lawsuits over large amounts of money where there's practically no documentation, and a lot of that is emails. So there are precedents, though, for procurements, for services, and for financial services. And as I described last time, given the shallow pool of potential administrators, one or two or three, chances are we won't actually go to the length of doing a formal RFP, request for proposals. The difference between an RFQ and an RFP is that in the RFQ, you're asking the short list to tell you something about themselves and let you know that they meet your minimum qualifications. You're telling them what you want and asking them largely to propose how they would do it and what they would charge for doing it. If this were an RFQ for development services for a town center or for architectural services, developers and architects hate that because these RFQs are asking them to basically do free work. Show us enough of what you can do that we can see it, and then we'll look at everybody's proposal and maybe we'll pick one and go cut a deal with the one that we like, and the rest of you just wasted your time and money. So we're kind of doing something like that. In that, we're saying that it's a two-step process. We're going to send out the RFQ. We tell you what our evaluation factors are. We ask you to write us a letter, send us your form documents, tell us what your pricing is. We may or may not interview you. We probably will. And then based on what we get, then we'll have the right to submit an RFP to everyone. So, for example, if somebody tells you their prices is a per transaction charge, in other words, if you got, there's a list of the things that we're asking them to do, the scope. So if it's $10 per item on the list in the scope, that'd be $100. So somebody might propose we'll charge you $10 for each one of those things that we do. Somebody else might say I'll charge you the lump sum of $90 for doing all of them. Somebody else might say we charge you by the hour and our hourly rate is $50 an hour. So there's three different ways to calculate the cost of this. And what we would then do if we did an RFP would be to pick one that we like and send it out and saying we want everybody to propose on the basis of an hourly charge or per component of the transaction or per component lump sum. And then it's apples to apples and oranges to oranges when they come back to us on what we selected as the means by which we want to pay them. More than likely, though, when we get the letters in from the banks that and incidentally, it doesn't have to be a bank. We've only talked about banks, so that's what I put in there. It allowed me to focus it better. But if you want to broaden it to, non-bank lenders or non-financial institutions, we can do that. But more than likely, what will happen is we send this to the one or two or three banks that we've got. We'll have a telephone call or an in-person meeting with them. They'll send us something, or they won't. It may be that we send it to three of them and only one of them comes back to us. But we'll probably know with a high degree of certainty who we want to deal with and what the likely terms are going to be. And then we have the option of skipping the work of creating an RFP and sending it out to everybody and seeing if somebody will change what they want to do based on a more defined term. But if we don't do the RFP, then we would go right to contract with whoever's willing to do business with us. And there's probably not a standard contract for this. It would probably have to be custom created, but maybe the bank's got something that they'd like to work from. But we would start with the RFQ, and I can tell you what's in it. So the first block there describes what I just told you. The two tables are for the timing. We need to know the dates for the RFQ and then the dates for the RFP. Scope of work is these 10 things with a little bit of explanation below it. We tell them what the SOQ statement of qualifications consists of, and that's A, B, C, and D items, and anything else the board wants. Then minimum qualifications, it's really not much. Just be a real bank doing business within our jurisdiction, and have the ability to perform the services. Then the block below that, which has the outside date for responses in bold, that's our reservation of rights. We won't have to do business with any of you if we don't want to. Then is the terms and conditions are the normal terms and conditions, get designed just to protect us. An RFP would have more, and the agreement would have more too, because it's a contract. And that's it. So this is, my computer's telling me 5 pages. And it's not real small print. So we can condense it if you like, but I think that does give you the basics that you need.
So we need to talk about both the RFQ and the RFP in the same document. We have to, we can't just put an RFQ and then say, we will consider say an RFP, but it's based upon the results of an RFQ.
If we're going to do that, then let me change it to an RFP. But just know that if you use my pricing example, it's not like you can't look and see who's got the best price because they're all doing it differently. You just don't know.
Yeah.
But it's legal to do that if you want to.
Well, I'm very leery of by the hour as a criteria for an RFP. So
yeah, well, bankers charge less than lawyers.
Well, I know, but there's still that area of doubt. But anyway.
No, and they probably don't offer it by the hour anyway. It's just an example.
Yeah, I understand. Well, we're right at just past the 5 o'clock mark. I know we want to get this RFQ out to whomever might be responding to us, so we can get those applications in. I'm not sure we can nail it down right in this moment without spending a fair bit of time doing it, or how do y'all feel about that?
I would like to make a recommendation that Dan is probably an expert on this more than we are, and he should advise us, and we should just say, sounds good, Dan, let's move on. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start in trying to make any changes here. I trust that Dan is using best practices.
Right, but we do have to set the date and set when it was issued, all that information. We have to decide on some of that.
I bet Dan has some recommendations for it, knowing how long these things take. I don't know. I want it to be done tomorrow, but I know that's not real.
Dan, do you have a notion of what window of time we'll need?
Well, this is actually realer than you might think. We're putting, and I really am proud of this board. Y'all are doing a very professional job with this program, and it needs it. And we're not quite through yet. But I have been thinking about it. I don't know that we necessarily need to complete our process and then send the RFQ out. The guidelines have been approved, and that's the only thing. And I said in the form they exist now. So somebody says, show me your scoring matrix, show me your application. We can show them a draft. But if we look at the dates on it, so I would like the board to at least sleep on this and make sure nobody has questions or anything. But what is today anyway? Today's Wednesday. So we could, for example, issue the RFQ. Well, I guess we'd need Ilka back because she knows who our 2 or 3 candidates are on Monday. Give them, if you're asking somebody to do design work, going back to getting free work from developers and architects, you want to allow them enough time to do it, but that's not what we're asking for. I mean, somebody can either do this or not. If they don't know how to do it, if they don't know whether they can do it or not, then they should decline. So I'd give them a couple of weeks in that second block, and then I'd give ourselves a week, maybe 2, to make the decision. So that fills in the first RFQ process. And, as far as the RFP goes, a way to make that really easy is to take that table out and just say in here, if we proceed with the RFP, we'll give you the timing in the RFP document so we don't have to do that work now.
Oh, yeah, that would be my preference, not to put too much into the RFP in this document.
And then we're done. I mean, we literally could send this out on Monday if you wanted to.
Well, would we be looking at the entities that fill out the RFQ, looking at their statement of qualification, and then sending an RFP to multiple candidates?
No, because we're shortlisting for the RFP the best responders to the RFQ. So all that we could do in addition to sending this document or the final document to the short list that we have is to post it on the website of Athens-Clarke and the website of Winterville. And if anybody wants to send it to other banks in the jurisdiction so they don't get offended, maybe they're not interested, but they might like to be asked. And then we can send it to the Georgia Bankers Association, the Community Bankers Association. If we're going to do that, then we need to allow more than 2 weeks.
So I think my main concern is that we select a candidate and then their proposal is unacceptable and we have to start again. So that's why I would think, like if we're not happy with their terms, mm-hmm. we don't want to pay their price, and there's not much room for negotiation. If we only have one candidate, then we have to start the process again. That would be the only advantage I can see to combining the RFQ and the RFP.
I do think we do have to go through 2 stages, though. I'm not sure we have to pre-qualify with the RFQ. And if we're comfortable with 1 or 2, we can ask them to submit an RFP.
Okay, so we can get multiple RFPs after we take a look at the candidates.
Yeah, we get to decide based upon the RFQ who we want to solicit RFPs from.
Okay.
And it's purely up to us. We don't have to give it to any of them. We don't like what we see.
I was still reading, so I might have missed that.
Is that correct, Dan?
That is correct. And if we can short circuit the RFP process if we want to. If we get a perfect proposal, then why mess around and just accept it if it's perfect? Mm-hmm. If we don't, then we can do a broader solicitation under the RFQ. We can push the date some and send it other places. But if you like, we're not limited to the list that ILCA's got now. We can send it to every bank in Athens-Clarke and Winterville, and we can send it to the Bankers Association. And it's not much effort. It's no effort for me because ILCA would have to do it. So that's we could do that. And then when something comes back, or hopefully many things come back, and we're not sure that we've got exactly what we want, but we feel like we can get what we want, then I can take the RFQ and turn it into an RFP, and that wouldn't be much work. Really, we dictate what. If somebody came back with a really good idea that should be included in the scope, we'd add that. If somebody said nobody can do this, and they shouldn't say that because I took it out of a financial services RFP, but sometimes people are, like that. If we had to make a change in the scope, we could make it. If we had to choose, and we should choose, one payment or one pricing methodology, we should do that. If there's anything else that needed to be changed, we could change it in this document and get that out back on the street to the short list in a very short period of time. And then maybe we'd get the perfect proposal if we didn't get it the first time. So it wouldn't add a lot of, it's a good idea, I think, to go to a wider pool with the RFQ the first time around for the reason that was said, so we don't have to start over. The RFP, again, I would recommend that we not do that unless we're uncertain that we've got the best proposal already. But if we're uncertain, send it out to the short list, the ones that look the best, and that's our choice, and give them 2 weeks to decide, and we're done. So
is everybody agreeable to send it a little wider, say to the Georgia Banking Association or whatever the entity that, other than just the couple that ILCA's come up with? Rather spread the net a little wider and see what kind of response we get. I guess we could have it sent out by next, but as soon as ILCA can get it out to those organizations. Do we have a legal notification requirement in the papers or anything?
We can do that, but we're not obligated to do it.
Okay. No, I don't want to do anything don't have to do.
And I think particularly if we send it to the whole consortium of local lenders, then we've hit everybody possible.
Mayor,
Is there just a consortium of only local, or is it the statewide Georgia lenders? I mean, I don't know what organizations we have.
there are two community bankers for the smaller banks, although those community banks, some of them are very large. And then the Georgia Bankers Association, which is for the big regional banks and national banks. The Georgia Bankers Association almost certainly is not going to be interested in this, their membership. Community bankers might be, but really, this is a community effort here. We're trying to help the community, and the chances are almost 100% that the only interest we're going to get is from local banks. But, you don't know. Right. Why not do that? But can I ask Kelly, I know that Athens-Clarke has a dedicated page, or maybe more than one page, for RFPs and RFQs coming out from the local government.
We do.
Would it be possible to put this up on that website?
Absolutely.
Page? Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe Winterville does too, for all I know.
We can always put it on the website or link to the counties without having to duplicate the actual RFQ itself. We could reference it from the city.
Sure. I mean, if RFPs and RFQs are normally done that way and we didn't do it, somebody would criticize us for not doing it.
I'd say we do it that way. We somehow have to notify them, and just putting it out there, people aren't going to know it's out there for them to look at. ILCA would, I would assume, have to communicate with the community bank association somehow, saying we got something out there to look at.
I just had an idea. There's also something called the Georgia Procurement Registry, it's been around for a while, but it's relatively new. It's now mandatory for construction procurements.
Right.
And they accept you or don't accept you by NAICS codes, NAICS codes. And we could post it there if they were willing to accept something like this, and we can find out whether they accept it or not.
Sounds like something ILCA could find out for us, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounds like we want to move forward, and maybe between Dan and ILCA that we can get that process started. I certainly want to get it. We can use the ACCGov website. There are a few sections to place it and then announce it to whomever through whatever mechanisms we think is appropriate. How does everybody feel? Shall we leave it in ILCA and Dan's hand?
Yeah, and I'm putting a note on my calendar just to connect with ILCA on Monday.
Okay.
Thank you.
How do everybody feel? Does that sound like a plan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that covers what we were going to talk about in terms of old business. Given that we're already an hour, 15 minutes over our allotted hour, is there any new business we really feel like we need to talk about?
No.
All right. The staff report, ILCA's not here, so we have to skip over that. Any other reports from you, Dan?
Nothing to report.
Okay. All right. So the last item before adjournment is to set our next meeting. I know we want to move on this. Pretty much, we've got the guidelines approved. We've got the matrix approved. We have the application that Dan's going to work on. Do we want to finalize that next Wednesday?
That'd be good.
All right, let's plan. I'd like to put a motion that we meet next Wednesday, the 22nd. I think 4:00 is fine, unless people want to meet sooner than that.
4 is fine.
Okay, so I'm putting forth a motion that our next meeting will be held Wednesday, July 29th at 4:00 virtually.
I'll second that.
All right, Eric, second that. All those in favor of that next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, that's our next meeting is next Wednesday, 4:00. I'd like to put forth a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, I heard Kelly first. So, all right, Kelly gets the second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, Gavel hit. Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Good progress, folks.
Be safe, everyone.
So YouTube for the board meeting, the school board meeting, Kelly?
What's that? Oh, yeah. So it's the community conversation. So it'll be on in 45 minutes.